But how about this story in New South Wales today? 10 new government ferries ordered for Sydney are a little too high in the water for passengers to stay up on the upper deck when they sail under bridges on their way west to Parramatta. A bungle or all part of the plan? That's one of the issues I took up with New South Wales Transport Minister Andrew Constance earlier. On the coronavirus front, he's dealing with threatened industrial action from train and bus drivers who want masks to be made compulsory on public transport. Andrew Constance, thanks for joining us again. First up, masks on public transport. Obviously they're a good idea, but the unions want them mandated. What's the sticking point here?
Well, as I said to the unions last week, mandating means either fining people or denying them a service. And as soon as I said that to them, well, they didn't want bus drivers telling people not to be getting on their bus, and they certainly didn't want people fined. So I think we need to be very clear what mandating means. We don't have Chief Medical Officer advice to telling us to mandate masks, but we are telling everybody very sensibly, put them on. It's a good line in the defence against the spread of the virus, but it shouldn't cut across the other important messages when it comes to good physical distancing, going and getting tested if you have a runny nose, and good hygiene practices. And I think, we don't want to be in a position where we're issuing $200 on-the-spot fines to people or telling people they can't get on a bus or a train. And, at the moment, we don't have any advice to the contrary in terms of what we do have, and that is to tell people to put masks on, but not making them a mandatory requirement.
They obviously make a lot of sense in crowded situations, and in my experiences at places like supermarkets and train stations, there are a lot of people wearing masks now of their own volition, obviously. Do you have any data on how many passengers, what percentage of passengers on public transport are masking under the current arrangements? Yeah,
look, we've been doing some counts on some of the busier stations. They vary between 50% and 20%, depending on the station. So in all, about a third of commuters are now wearing them, and I would expect that to continue to grow as people tend to come back to workplaces over the next couple of months. But, it's a bit of common sense too, and a bit of self-responsibility wouldn't go astray. I mean, we've gone and provided free masks to our frontline transport workers. Some of them are wearing them, some of them aren't. My preference would be to see every bus driver have them on. But some are choosing not to do that, and we want to lead by example. So I think the key element out of it is, start to wear them. We don't need to wave a magic stick at everybody and fine people, and just be sensible about it. And can you resolve the conflict with the unions then over this? Well, we were able to stop a 48-hour bus strike, so that was the first win. There's been a staff meeting today to explain to them the situation with masks and why we're guided by the public health officer. But there's also the other element to this, which relates to entitlements into the future for drivers, and we've been able to give some guarantees in writing, and that's been explained to the drivers today as well. And, I don't think there's any need to be causing strikes or upsetting the community, particularly at a time like now when people's jobs are on the line or people have lost jobs. We've been able to give some guarantee to this workforce of an additional 2 years beyond the end of the contract period in terms of their job guarantees. So, I think it's really important that, cool heads prevail here. No need for strike action, no need to force more commuters onto less services. We've been expanding the number of services. We've got 98.7% of services which are practising really good physical distancing in terms of commuters. We want to maintain that course throughout the pandemic to make sure we keep people safe. Now, I've just got to ask you about another story that's come out today, another episode. It's almost out of Yes Minister, but you've got 10 new ferries ready to go into service between the Sydney CBD and Parramatta, but they're too high. The top deck, people will have to evacuate the top deck when they're going under two crucial bridges. Well, it's deliberate that we're providing outdoor access on the new ferries. The private ferries run up the river. And, at two bridges, people are asked to come downstairs for safety reasons. The public sector ferries are going to be exactly the same. And it does enable people who do catch the River Cat, and the local commuters know this, that once you get past the two bridges, to be able to sit outside on a lovely Sydney day, travelling the river into the city and into the Circular Quay, it's a good place to be outside. So we're now providing that offering with the new ferries into the future. It's been done deliberately. No one is going to be at risk of decapitation and all the stories that go alongside this. It's absolutely a sensible thing to do so that people can enjoy the outdoor setting when travelling on the River Cat into the future, which is what they can't do currently. You're
sure that the workplace health and safety officers and the risk managers won't just close off that top deck altogether because they can't trust people going up and down depending on whether or not they've passed the bridges?
Well, it's been running, as I understand it, since 2014 with the private ferries. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't provide the opportunity. The deckhands, the skippers, they're sensible people. The commuters are too. They understand it. There's 10 seats which are located upstairs on the new ferries, and people, just as they go under those two bridges at the end of the journey up the river, will be required to come downstairs. I think it's a good practical thing. And east of those bridges, people will be able to get out and enjoy the sunshine and enjoy, you know, the amenity of sitting outside on a River Cat.
Just finally, Andrew, Constance, when we're talking about border closures around the country, how hopeful are you, given low numbers of infections in New South Wales, that you'll get some more easing of restrictions from both Queensland and South Australia in particular?
Well, look, I have some degree of first-hand experience of this because my electorate's a border community on the south coast with Victoria. I think what people are looking for in terms of border closures is they want certainty. So if they know there's a trigger point in terms of the number of community transmissions which might be happening in Victoria, which might ease the pressure, well then they want to know that governments are continually evaluating it. And I think that's the key element in all of this, just providing some degree of certainty. You know, look, this is the problem with a pandemic. No one can predict where it goes and how it unfolds. But what we do and we must ensure is that the governments into the future provide great leadership in terms of the post-pandemic recovery. And it was good to see some numbers around today in terms of New South Wales with people who lost jobs initially in the pandemic now finding work again. But, you know, I think ultimately people are looking into the future with wanting to know what the trigger points are and what the certainty is.
Andrew, Constance, thanks for joining us.
Good on you, Chris.